Hello and welcome to my review and build of the High Grade Dilanza. I've been looking for a kit that I could recommend to people as like the perfect starter kit, and I think I might just have found it. So a few details: this cost me 20 quid from Forbidden Planet, comes on 5 sprues, it only took me an hour to build, and that was just snap built with a bit of panel lining. Right, so let's make a start on the build. So this is the High Grade Dilanza. It's 1:144 scale. Comes from the Witch and Mercury series. If you have Crunchyroll, it's on there. Highly recommended. And I mentioned that I want to do something new depending on the kit for each video. So as the Dilanza was so simple, I thought, how long would it take just to snap build it? Just using the double snip method, do a bit of panel lining, and I think the results are pretty interesting. So this video is going to show pretty much the entire build from start to finish. That includes things like me panel lining, which I do on the parts, as you can see. It just makes it easier. You can keep the parts on the sprue so it's easier to hold. And I'll also be showing me cleaning any overspill from the panel line. Cutting all the parts from the sprues, which I cut with quite a gap to the nub. Doing the final cuts on the parts, I use my god hands. Any tidy work, I use my glass file here or there. And how I arrange the parts for assembly. And then finally, just assembling the model from start to finish. So, like I said, I want to do different things for each video. I don't want to just show the build each time. Looking at the YouTube metrics, it's one of the parts where some people do stay and watch the videos, but a lot of people watching an assembly of a model part by part for 10 minutes isn't everyone's cup of tea. I get that. So how do I make those parts interesting? How do I make sure each video demonstrates the cool thing for that kit? So going forward, like I said, I'll be doing a different theme for each one. One might be how I do the decals, one might be how cool the wings are. And this one, because it was such an easy build, like I said, can I build it in one go? How long will it take? It is a high grade, so it's quite simplistic, but overall, I think you'll be pretty surprised how quickly you can put a Gunpla together. I've sped the video up by anywhere between 5 times to 10 times speed, just to make sure that the hour-long build, bit of a spoiler there, isn't too boring. So I hope that people enjoy this, see this video for what it is. It's not just a review of the kit, it's also a bit of a demonstration of how quickly you can make a model kit if you know roughly what you're doing. I'm not going to pretend I'm any sort of expert. I've made a lot of Gunpla, ranging from SD kits up to perfect grades and everything in between. By and large, I'm pretty well versed. I've made a few, 50, 60, maybe more. So I do feel that this is pretty accurate for just about anybody. As you can see, I'm using god hands to tidy up my nubs there, and I do have some decent equipment, but if you just have a decent pair of nippers, a cutting mat and a kit, I don't think you'd be far off how long it took for me to make this. It goes together quite well. It's a really straightforward kit. Like I said, I have 5 sprues. It's not many, which is about regular for a high grade, I'd say. Some of the bigger, more complex ones do have a lot more sprues. I've got the Cowrie A, which is a winged Gundam. That's going to be a video coming up in the future, and that comes on a lot more. I think that's on about 10-15 sprues. But also another purpose of this is not everybody watches my videos are people who build Gunpla. For all of you who have, I'm not going to teach you to suck eggs. You've made high grades before probably, it's the most common size. But for those of you who have yet to make a Gunpla, or some of my friends for instance that are watching these because you've seen me make one, you think, oh, actually those robot things, they look pretty cool, you know, I can make one of them. Well, maybe this is the inspiration you need. It's really not that difficult. If you want it to be even quicker, you wouldn't even have to trim the parts off the nubs, just cut them off the parts off the sprues directly. I suggest doing it this way, you get tidier cuts, and I also think it's a bit quicker. But you can do that. This is all about, Gunpla is about options, it's about how you want to do things. For instance, a lot of people will build the model panel by panel. So they'll cut off the 2 parts for A24 and that part for B16, and they'll assemble that bit. Whereas I tend to cut off all the parts for that page. So as I have the runner in my hand, I'll just nip off all the parts for the A runner that's on that page, move on to the B runner if there are any for that page at that time, and cut off all those parts, and then I'll trim them all up, get all the parts ready that are on that page, and generally I'll either put them into the order that they appear panel by panel, or if there's only a few parts, like for a hand, I'll just pop them all on the cutting mat and assemble it bit by bit. You can recognise what each part is. You just take a look and it's like, oh, there's that grey circular part that goes on the magenta forearm, for instance. There's the forearm. And Bandai's instructions are so good that I think you can just recognise them on sight. You don't need to refer to the part number, as it were. That's just one way of making model kits. Whatever way people choose to build, that's up to them. I've seen some people who don't even look at the instructions. They cut all the parts off the runner, stick them in bags, and then assemble the kit by going, oh, I need something from bag A, and digging around in bag A for A19, for instance. This is just the way that I do things. I think it makes me efficient. As you can see, I can just cut out all the bits, generally because Gunpla has a lot of symmetry. You know, you'll build a left and a right arm at the same time, or a left leg, right leg, feet, for instance. You tend to be building bits that are right next to each other on the sprue. So just cut them all off, trim them up, make yourself organised. If you've already panel lined, you don't have to do anything else past there. You can do a bit of custom work, maybe put on some decals, maybe do some touch-ups with things like Gundam markers, especially the metallic ones. I love metallic Gundam markers. But it's just about being organised and efficient for me, and I hope people have recognised some of the tips and tricks I might use. That does lead me on to a bit of an interesting idea. Maybe I'll do a video for my tips and tricks. I've seen plenty out there, and I've learnt loads from them. So thank you to all those content creators that have made tips and tricks videos in the past, because I've really benefited from them. But I've got a couple that I use. I use my dish drainers, which are a fantastic cheap alternative to sprue holders. This whole how I prep stuff at the beginning, both with panel lining on the sprue and tidying that up, as well as assembling the parts and trimming them so they're ready for assemble, just organising that so it's easier to do. So that might be a video that'll be coming up soon. Here you can see I use a bit of the thinners to clean off the panel line where it had a bit of overspill and I couldn't see it before I trimmed it off. Getting back to the kit itself, it really is a nice pretty kit. You take a look at it, it's got that magenta is really nice. It's a bit glossy. I'm tempted to just run a coat of flat matte over the top of it, top coat, just to dull that down a little bit. I will take the weapons off first, because the fluorescent green that the beam effect is in really reacts nice to the LEDs on my shelves, almost glows, so I don't want to affect that in any way, but I might just give the model itself a bit of a top coat. As you can see from the video, not been building it for long. If you sped this up a bit, you'd realise this is probably about half an hour, 40 minutes through, and it's pretty much built. You can see the head, the arms, the legs in the background, and we are literally at the end of the build itself. There's that fantastic fluorescent green. I love that colour for beam effect parts. I much prefer it to the yellow that some kits come with. I don't like that. It just looks like urine. Not sure what the green looks like. Maybe the ooze from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it looks fantastic. And like I said, under LED lights, that pops. That pops really good. So just assembling the kit now. All pops together, real easy. There's no clever parts in this. Like I said, it's just a high grade There's no fancy mechanics, just literally the arms, legs, torso, waist, head. There you go. Bit of a backpack, and then some weapons. One of the problems to the whole cut out a bulk of parts that you do sometimes forget one or two. You'll see me go back and grab the sprue to grab that bit because I forgot it, but it's still more efficient. So let's get to the final score and a review. When I started this, I wanted to find a kit that I could recommend to people as like, oh, if you want to get your kids into Gunpla, this is a really good kit to pick up because it's easy to make. And I was wondering what kit falls into that category. You've obviously got entry grades, which are obviously, as they're titled, entry, one of the best ones to recommend to people. But Witch from Mercury is still quite recent. There's a lot of kits that came out for it. And they can be picked up quite cheap now. I think a lot of stores are no longer pushing up the prices because of the anime, so they've stabilised and there's a lot of stock. I love the Dilanza. I know it's a bit of a Boolean design. Some people are going to look at those hippo legs and the slightly thin arms, as well as the plume on the top. I'll stick a picture up in a second. It does look like a nutsack from certain angles. But I like it. I think it's got great weapons. It's relatively cheap. You know, you can get it for about 15 quid. Doesn't have any stickers. There are some cons. It's a bit of a polarising design, like I said. There's a lack of colour separation because it's a high grade. And it might be too simple and not really an interesting build for people. I do still recommend it though. And the final score for this is for fans. If you're a fan of the series, definitely pick it up. But I don't think it is the perfect starter kit, just because of that design's a little bit weird. But it took an hour, so if you fancy a quick build, you like the series, you like the Dilanza's kit, then please go pick it up. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.